Hi, and welcome to another Scientology Outside of the Church podcast brought to you by ao-gp.org and collegeofindependent This is season 12, episode 10 already. We may be at 200 episodes. I'll have to go look, but we're getting there. And I'm here with Arthur Mudakis and Quentin Stroud, my trusty compatriots, the Holy Triumvirate, and we are going to discuss a very different topic today than we have. We have it in our description that we talk about different things, and this is going to be one of those different things. So, Arthur posed this as a podcast topic, and I'm going to turn it over to Arthur, and we'll go from there, and it always leads somewhere very interesting. So, Arthur, take it away.
All right. So at the moment, I'm sure everybody's feeling something. And so there's a lot of stuff going on. So we've got Mercury retrograde. We've got the sun spitting out solar flares. The wind's all over the place. People are all over the shop. So is there tech around this stuff? As in, is it woo 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 woo? Is there some legitimacy to it? What is going on here? And I'm pretty sure between the three of us, we'll all have very strong opinions about it. And so let's do this. Who wants to give their first thought?
Well, Quentin, I'm gonna point my finger at you, and we'll start there, and you can throw your hat into the ring on the whole thing, and then I'll follow up after.
And then I'll tag one of you guys. Okay, well,
Yeah.
first of all,
Right.
I will say that, when it comes to technology, when it comes to communication, when it comes to things going haywire, what we know is that everything is consciousness, everything is consideration. And so a lot of this stuff that's happening is collective groupthink, collective mental mass that is happening in our three-dimensional reality. And this stuff is happening to us when you have your cell phone drop. In fact, right before we started this podcast, we were having all kind of wonky issues trying to get everybody in at the same time in the same location, and I went somewhere else and had to come through another dimension. And so all I'll say is that this stuff that's happening right now, I believe it is a collective group think kind of thing, and it is our attempt as Thetans to conquer the messed universe, the physical universe, right? We are on this conquest of the physical universe. And as this stuff is happening, it's not happening necessarily to us, but through us. And so when we start to understand and see this stuff kind of happening, and I think we can even go back millennia when people would get sick with the plague or people would get, they would blame it on all kinds of things, all kinds of demons and witches and fairies and toads and all kind of stuff until we start to learn more and more and more about uh, our world around us and how that world around us impacts our bodies, impacts our health, impacts our sanity. That's what the word lunatic comes from. Where the moon was full, they think people would go crazy. And so when you're talking about solar flares and stuff like that, I mean, something's going on. Something's happening. The winds of time are changing. And so, yeah, there's definitely something going on.
Well, that leads me to earlier podcasts that we've talked about considerations, postulates. We've talked about yours, mine, and the agreed upon reality. All of this stuff also ties into what LRH talks about specifically in keeping Scientology working, number one, and group bank agreement. And I guess what I'm asking you is that basically what you're saying?
Yeah, I do believe that's a part of it, and I believe that um, we kind of have a brotherhood with the universe in that we can experience two-way communication, right? Like I'm sitting here in my chair, I'm touching my chair, I'm touching my desk, I'm touching my phone, and I'm communicating with these devices and this meshed, material universe kind of things. But it's also, in a sense, communicating back to me something as well. It's solidity, supposedly, when we know it's really not solid, but okay. It's solidity, it's communicating, it's moisture, it's temperature, it's this, it's that, or whatever. And I'm able to perceive of what it is to a degree, and it is able to be impacted by me as a thetan, as a being. And
Right.
so let's take that a bit bigger. Let's take that outside of my office and let's take that into, our solar system, right? And let's take that, with,
Hmm.
like Arthur said, with the solar flares and stuff. What is that communicating to us, solar flare? And as we perceive it through our telescopes and through our, whatever, as we perceive of it, what is it? What are we in perceiving of it?
Well,
So
So,
that's very interesting.
it's an agreement. It's a relationship of sorts.
All
so the way I see it,
right. So,
um,
Arthur, go ahead.
yeah. So the way I see it is, as human beings, we're all trying to find an answer to something, right? So if we imagine that the moon has enough force to move water, creating waves, right? And that's water, that's large bodies of water being pulled towards the moon, then gigantic planets in our solar system also will also have an effect on us. So as far as astrology or astrologically goes, I do believe that there is certainly a definite influence from these magnetic pulls. And imagine there's planets all around us, there's these forces all around us that are constantly pulling on our bodies, but not enough that we can actualize it. Like say, for example, a strong wind, when you feel it and you feel its force, you could feel what it's actually doing to you. But these other forces are so subtle that they're constantly pushing and pulling on the body. And then you've got your actual environment, what's actually going on in the environment, the things you can feel, the things you can touch, the things you can, I suppose, obviously observe. Then you've got that going on. And then I think the nature of our minds as well, especially when we're feeling uncomfortable, right? So like let's say there are forces pulling on us in all directions and it creates a discomfort. And then the postulates that are created and the ideas that are created around that exacerbate that discomfort. Going back to what you're both saying to some degree. So on one point, you've got these planetary pushes and pulls, and then you've got the hive mind thinking on top of it. And all it takes is one person to be like, oh my God, it's Mercury pulling on me, making me feel a certain way. When really it's just a force that you're not understanding. And so therefore, it's an answer. So you'll take that answer on board and then you'll tell your friends and then they'll tell their friends and then somebody puts it on TikTok and then somebody's doing podcasts on it and then it spreads faster than COVID.
Well, and that it's interesting that you say that, and feel free to chime in, either one of you, in what I'm about to say, because
Yeah.
um, we've talked about this. We've talked about this in many, many ways, and as we know, and we've all said it to each other in non-podcast communications and on podcasts, that everything is relative, and that I was watching a series for the second time on Apple TV the other night, and it has to do with physics and Schrodinger's cat and all these alternate universes and everything. And it's a really, really good show. So good that I'm watching it again, which I've never really done with anything other than Breaking Bad. So uh,
What's it called?
the point is that in that uh oh, I knew you were going to ask me
Oh,
that.
come on. You can't do that. You can't put something like that
Yeah,
out there.
yeah, yeah. Uh, I
Uh,
will look right now and I will
What
tell
is it
you
about?
what it is. It's on Apple TV, and it's dark matter
Dark matter. Oh yeah, I've heard of
is
that.
what it's
Mhm.
called.
Oh yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah,
based,
yeah. Yep.
yeah, it's based off of a novel, and the author who wrote it is also, which is incredibly rare, the showrunner and a director for the show. So his show it's not like Game of Thrones where the author wrote the book and then two other guys are doing the show, and then they figure out how to end the show because the author hasn't ended the book series type of a thing, and everybody's disappointed in season 8. It's not like that. It's very much like the book. So in this show, in the second episode, the main character is a physics uh, professor at a local college. And I was watching this, and they brought up the first law of thermodynamics. And the first law of thermodynamics is that energy cannot be created. All of the energy in the universe exists. And I just had this cognition because I just, what? And then I realized that that is completely contrary to what LRH says in the axioms, right, Quentin?
Oh yeah, definitely. It can be
Okay,
manifested.
because we are an energy production unit. Now, I'm sure our listeners are like, yeah, get on with it. What's your point? My point is that back to relative truths, what we know and what is really going on are two different things. Because if we have people being taught, just like Arthur was saying, we have people being taught that energy cannot be created. All energy exists as it is now, which is very much a messed universe viewpoint. We have a problem because that's a law, a physics quote unquote law. And laws are arbitraries, as we talked in an earlier podcast about. So you're dealing with what we know and what we don't know, what we've been told that we know, and we've agreed to it. Reality is relative. And in the context of this podcast, you have a situation where, okay, we're being told all of the things that Arthur just said about the moon's pulling on the liquid on the surface of the planet, and this is what creates tides and all this stuff. This is what we were taught. This is what we were told. We were
Yep.
also taught to be good workers, pay our taxes, get a house, pay double or triple for it in payments on interest, and live, die, repeat type of a thing. So we don't know everything, and we live in a meat puppet with a very, very narrow band of awareness that we are tied to. And this is our sensor array that we go through in the physical universe. And how and why it was put here, well, LRH helped figure out some of that stuff as far as the last however many tens or dozens of millions of years meat bodies have been running around on this planet in a large population, or when people came and visited here, what the origins of a meat body were, uh, so on and so forth, on and on and on. But to go, there's nothing faster than the speed of light. Okay, this is what we're taught in physics. Au contraire, what's faster than the speed of light? Gravity. Think about that one. I'm just using that as an example.
Right.
Gravity
And
gravity
that
is
gravity
faster
can
than the speed of
alter,
light.
and that gravity can
Right.
alter it. Yeah.
Gravity can alter light. So there you go, right there. Nobody says it except, maybe Stephen Hawking or something like that. And some physicists understand it and everything. But the thing is we live in the dark ages. And part of the reason why we live in the dark ages is the same reason we lived in the earlier dark ages recently on the track just a few hundred years ago. Okay, because information was cut off. Da 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 da. Well, this is Dark Ages 2. You go, wait a minute. I'm talking to you on a phone over Zoom, and we have the internet, and da 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 da. Okay, that's fine. But the thing is we don't know what we don't know, and in the confines of this podcast, what we're talking about is that there are other phenomena here at work, may or may not be true, but we are seeing results, and that's what we're talking about, whether it's group bank agreement or postulates or considerations, and there's X billions of people experiencing all of this and agreeing. I would love to ask AI, how many people are in agreement on the planet on average with astrology, for example? Over to you guys.
What? Let me ask her right now.
Well, and it's funny because LRH even talks about like this to a certain degree, where he talks about how, and we're kind of moving a little bit into parascientology, but he talks about
Yeah.
how that you can even running a sunburn, like a sunburn on a person, right? You can run a sunburn and you can turn on a sunburn in session. Now, this is interesting that you can turn on a sunburn, the like somatics of a sunburn, the actual sensations, the physical, the redness, the skin color, the the heat of the skin. You can actually turn on a sunburn in session. And so the idea then here is that what what are you as a being? Hear me. What are you as a being able to create? We just talked about the creation of energy, right? So you could be sitting in your office on the cans. Jonathan is running you in session, right? And you can turn on, you as a Thetan can turn on sunburn in your physical body. Just sit in your office, windows drawn, curtains drawn, whatever. Isn't that interesting that you have the ability to create the very thing that you've encountered or that you've experienced or that you recorded, right, in this experience in your physical body? So I don't necessarily think that, it's true that they say energy cannot be created in that sense. I think that you can create things, and we do create things all the time. In fact, even
Well,
drop cell phone calls.
right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, the point I was trying to make is that we're being taught that things are a certain way, when what you just described and what I see every day in session is a Thetan recreating energy and agreeing to it. So if a Thetan can do that and auditing works, which all three of us and our listeners know, then okay, we have now a platform on which to stand, which would then, by the law of transitive properties, say that Mercury retrograde, which we need to describe, by the way, since this is one of the things that brought this whole thing up prior to the podcast, and Arthur briefly touched on earlier, is that these things, whether true or not, are manifest. The only question to ask is, who or what is the cause of it? Would you guys not agree?
Well,
I think that's a
we're the
question.
cause of it.
Go ahead.
Because I mean,
That's what I was
all
gonna
right, let's
say.
go
Yeah.
back, and let's say, for example, I had a bellyache from eating an egg, for example, and that particular egg was actually rotten. There was no two ways about it. And so, in my village, in my tribe, I ate this egg, and I reacted from it. I vomited from it. There were physical signs, physical observations to show this. And then the rest of the village would have observed. What's their perception towards eggs after seeing that?
Well,
Eggs can make you sick.
That's right.
Hmm.
That's right. And that's
right.
just observing it. That's not going through the experience. So then you've got the person that actually went through the experience. Their perception of the experience is going to be very different to the people that just observed it, but they're all going to be affected by it in some way. So just from one person, an entire village all of a sudden has created a perception towards eggs.
Well, and that's an interesting point, because at one point in time, you've all heard the word geek. Back in the
Oh,
80s.
you just cut
He's a
out there.
geek. You saw it in,
Oh, yeah.
okay. Back in the day, there was what was called a geek. And you used to hear in the 80s in popular culture, oh, he's a geek. Don't mess with him. Don't hang out with him. He's a geek. And a geek was somebody who ate tomatoes because tomatoes were considered to be poison, and a geek would eat tomatoes and not die. It was a thing.
Is that true? Is that
It's
where it came from?
it's true. It's true. That's the etymology of the word, because a tomato is a nightshade, and
Yeah,
at the
no, it is
time,
a nightshade.
nightshades were considered to be poisonous. Okay, so that to Arthur's point is what everybody agrees on in the village. Oh my God, tomatoes are poisonous. Well, guess what? It's now an unwritten law that tomatoes are poisonous, and the king would like to see you eat a tomato and not die, and then you can sit at the king's table at his bounty. Literally true story.
Wow. And then if you get in trouble, they put you in the stocks and they throw rotten tomatoes at
Yeah, that's right.
Right,
You get that
right.
one
Or you
person
put
that comes out and says, no, 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 no. Eggs are good. They're healthy for you. Lock him up.
you, right?
right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
And so now there's corporal punishment for somebody that eats eggs just like tomatoes
yeah.
or something like that, because if you were living on the king's land and or under a duke or something like that, and you put somebody at risk, you could be jailed because you're the king's property, and under fiefdom he owns you, and if you get people killed, well, now there isn't going to be as much food for everybody in the winter. So you could see how all of this could happen, bringing
Mm,
it
Yep.
forward to the 21st century, where okay, so if we need to keep control over people, and that's not what this podcast is about, but it needs to be understood that information can be known and kept from the masses, because if they really knew the truth, well, as Jack Nicholson said in A Few Good Men, you can't handle the truth is decided for you. And LRH was one of the pioneers on this,
Right.
and he said, hey, look, check this shit out. to be
yeah.
to be vulgar and blunt, that's what independent Scientology and Dianetics is about, when he said, okay, you are an energy production unit, so the person that's eating the egg, and Arthur's viewpoint is a little bit different than mine. It's not wrong, but I was looking at it as he was explaining this as an analogy that eating an egg is, uh, and the person gets sick. Who ate the egg?
Yeah, that's right.
You get my point? And then you have all the resulting hilarity of misduplication, misunderstanding, yada yada yada, and now eggs are dangerous. There's no such thing as Mercury retrograde. Over to you guys.
And we've seen it. We've seen it in food 1,000 times. Like, how many times has chocolate been bad for you, and then it's good for you, and then it's bad for you, and then it's good for you, and then it's bad for you, and then it's good for you? Like,
Right, right,
there's
right. Well, they even said
it's
that in the
insane.
80s. Don't eat too many eggs.
Yeah, get some pork on your fork. We used to have a commercial here where they'd promote pork in such a fashion that pork was the prime meat to eat.
That's so crazy.
Right, right. Or milk. It does the body good. And then they say, well, you
That's
know,
right.
you really shouldn't drink that much milk, blah, 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 blah. And then 10, 15, 20 years later, now there's another PR campaign or another scientific paper or whatever. And so consideration is senior, and I think we need to bring this out into the light again,
Hmm.
is consideration is senior to the
Nice.
physical universe, to Mest,
Hmm.
So is
which,
consideration the true force?
For that person that considers it.
well, again, axiom states three universes, yours, mine, and the agreed upon reality of the
Hmm.
whole thing. So, in light of that, given what we're talking about, Mercury retrograde, Quentin, would you like to explain it?
Well, let me before I go into Mercury retrograde itself, I'll say this. Before I
Ouch.
go before I go into Mercury retrograde itself, I'll say this, that LRH talked about anchor points, right? And he talks about how in this universe, even in our own perspective, being here on planet Earth, right, as we're swirling around our solar system at breakneck speeds, as it were, but because we're on this big ball, floating out in space, moving around so quickly, we don't necessarily feel it. We can observe it. We can observe the passage of time because of, time is just, the measurement of moving particles. So we can observe the sun going from, rising in the east and setting in the west or whatever. We can observe that. But when you have no anchor points, or when your anchor points are out, you get very confused. And so when I look at, whether it be Mercury retrograde or Venus in, such and such, and all the things that I work with and I, talk about and stuff like that, I'm looking at anchor points, as it were, in life, anchor points in your experience. And for those people that choose those anchor points, I want to be very clear in what I'm saying here. For those people that choose those anchor points, they can be orienting to those people, right? And so when you understand and your anchor points, you can move a little bit different. He talks about how when you have a child and you move this child from place to place, from school to school, friends to friends, and location to location, boom, 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 the child will sink down into apathy after a while, right? Because even though that might be a very friendly child, when it comes to friends, when it comes to familiarity of anchor points, those anchor points can be so out because the child gets yanked around from place to place to place, right? Well, we're dealing with that every day. Every day we get yanked around the sun. Every moment we're being hurled around, hurled around, hurled around. And so for those people that want to choose Mercury and my Mars is in Venus and my Venus is in Aries and da da da, da, for those people who want to choose these anchor points as something to consider as a valid anchor point for them, it can be orienting, and it can give them some perspective or some direction or some whatever they may need in order to help them move on this moving ball in this universe, right? And so I just wanted to put that out there, that confidence, right? Confidence is one knowing his anchor points. This is LRH. A fellow is as certain as he knows his anchor points, whatever that is for you. Okay. Now,
That's a good viewpoint.
mm-hmm. And so now, when we're in right now, we're in the middle of a Mercury retrograde. So anybody who's listening to this podcast today, which is Wednesday, November 26th, we're in a Mercury retrograde cycle, and Mercury, per this viewpoint, is a planet that affects technology, communication, and travel. And so technology, obviously being the most thing that we're talking about now, even as we were here with Jonathan, the technology was skipping out a little bit or whatever. Um, right, Mercury affects technology, communication, and travel. And so what we want to make sure is, for those of you who have observed this for yourself, whatever's true for you is true for you, right? For those of you who have observed this for yourself, when Mercury is in retrograde, which means it appears to be going backwards from our purview. So it appears to be going backwards in the sky from our purview. We know it's still going the same direction. It's just the tilt of the planet and the way we're oriented in space. But when that happens, seems to be that technology and communication breakdowns happen, and you get all kind of arguments. Jonathan got mad at me the other day and came on, and I had to talk to him about some stuff, and I'm like, oh, Mercury retrograde strikes again. That's all I
I didn't. That didn't even occur. It didn't even occur to me till you said that. But to Arthur's ouch. I was not trying to imply, and I wanted to make it clear. I was not trying to imply that it was tea leaves and chicken bones. I was just merely saying that Quentin has a much better understanding in how to convey it and get it across as to what it is being said is happening from a standpoint of the planets in the solar system, and
Mm-hmm.
why this is happening. And I have observed and not observed, just as Quentin pointed out, that especially this time around, I don't I really don't know what to say, but since you've made me aware of it, I see it. I see it, and I
Which is
guess
interesting, isn't it?
it is in the context of what we're talking about, which what is it, Quentin? It's electronics. Uh,
Technology, travel, and communication. So, if there's been any, like I just said it earlier, one of my clients got into an argument with her boyfriend, and she was like, I had to, it hurt me to say it, but I had to stand up for myself. And I said, what in the Mercury retrograde is going on? That's what I said to her.
so that's the context, and Mercury is it's going to, because it goes around the sun much quicker. So we have, how many phases of Mercury retrograde do we have? 3 or 4 a year within a
Between three
calendar
and 4
year,
year, yeah, depending on the year.
right? So and it's getting to a point to where it's going to transit the sun and go behind the sun. Is that right? It's going.
Well, it's good, right? It goes around the sun faster than we do, and so when it's not affecting us as heavily, it's called Mercury. Mercury is going direct, and when Mercury is direct, things tend to move faster. Communication tends to happen easier. You have a good relationship with your 2D, and it was like, oh, everything is wonderful, and then come next 3 months, and just like a cycle, psh, damn. You, the solar system is on its cycle.
Well, and
Well,
and just
and this
talking about
this is
this,
Go ahead.
no, it's
sorry,
right.
yeah,
Go
and
ahead,
just
Arthur.
talking about this, right? It kind of makes me think a lot more of the concept of as isness, and reaching a state of OT. Because if if you can get to a point of complete as isness, then you'll essentially feel these forces, and then you'll have a greater understanding of them. Correct?
Right, you can't
And
be the
then,
adverse effect of something you understand. In other words,
Right. Correct.
in a sense, yeah. But I mean, you'd have to be extremely aware of your own being, to be able to comprehend that to its truest nature.
yeah.
And then it kind of gets me thinking as well, just while we're having this discussion, moving up the bridge opens your body to an understanding that is unexplainable ultimately, because like there are so many things, like science is trying to do what? Explain the unexplainable. And so we have these things, and then we've got like a subject of state of, say, astrology, where we can observe the planets, but when it comes to the observation of the effects of the planets is where it's a gray area as far as science goes. But then there are obvious phenomena that occur at certain periods. But then there's no real actual scientific, I can touch this, see this, but I can feel it. It's a different kind of observation. And so if we felt those nuances and those real finite sensations of, our total environment, then that would be a complete as isness. And that would
Well,
probably be OT also.
right. Well,
Mm.
that's true. I mean, you have to look at it from the viewpoint of, okay, where are you looking at this from? Are you looking at it from a thetan in a body, or a thetan that
Mhm.
occupies a body, or a thetan that is exterior to the body, and is still having to deal with all of the silly things that happen in the physical universe in this big clockwork, from subatomic particles all the way up to a galactic scale of rotating around a supermassive black hole, and galaxies rotating around. They're not sure what it is, but they just know that there's something there, and the dark matter in between, and all of that stuff. But the thing is that's still the physical universe, and we're
Um,
not part of that.
and what's interesting about what you just said then as well, it kind of goes back to what you said earlier. Like these are things we've been told. And so
Yeah.
do those things actually get in the way of having full perception of ourselves?
Right,
Well, I
right.
want.
Well, go ahead,
Mhm.
Quentin.
No, you go ahead and finish your flow, and I'm because
Well,
it's
well,
on another point.
I just wanted to say that from a physical universe standpoint, that when you have different sized objects one in front of the other, from a linear perspective, if you had one big marble and then you had subsequently significantly smaller marbles and everything and you were in a non-gravity influenced environment, those particular marbles would all have their own particular gravity as mass through the laws of physics that we're being told about. And there are lots of other things that are going on that have been observed, that physics and gravity and the laws of gravity and energy do not apply, especially when it comes to UAPs, formerly called UFOs, and things like that. So you have these marbles, and they're different sizes and everything. They influence one another. The bigger one influences the others. And then if you look at our solar system, and that all of the planets are on a particular plane, is it possible, and this is a hypothetical question, is it possible that this particular system, it's not a solar system, our system is called the solar system, our star is Sol, that's why it's called solar system. This system with its star and its planets was picked or designed or both to have particular properties that would enslave a Thetan in a certain way. I don't know if this is the case, but it's something I'm going to look up when I get off of the podcast. If all star systems and their planets are on the same plane, because if they're not, wouldn't that be interesting?
Mm.
Well,
Well, would we know any different
Well,
if it was
exactly. That's
different?
my
Yeah.
point. But from what Quentin is saying in Mercury retrograde, this is something where one thing is pulling on another, and when it goes behind the sun, which is the largest object in the system, and is the prime mover, the influence, if you will, gravitically, for all of the other planets, or at least that's what we're told. It bears
mhm.
scrutiny. Over to you, Quentin.
So, I want to read the definition of anchor points. Okay.
Okay.
So when you as a Thetan, as a being, are here and doing you, wherever here is for you, right? Anchor points. It says anchor point is assigned or agreed upon points of boundary, which are conceived to be motionless by the individual. Points which are anchored in a space different to the physical universe space around a body. Number three, those places which we call in advanced procedures and axioms the subbrains of the body, control centers, epicenters. Number four, the points which mark an area of space are called anchor points, and these, with the viewpoint alone, are responsible for space. So Jonathan just talked about Sol, the
Mm.
sun. That's a point which marks an area of space, our solar system, the Milky Way galaxy, or whatever, right? Um, it says a specialized kind of dimension point. Number six, any kind of a point, any kind of a particle, any kind of electron, or anything which anybody believes is an anchor point. There is nothing more real than a real anchor point. Okay. And so you're here doing you. And if you have no anchor points in, you'll just be spread all over the place. So even your physical body, right? And I've been, I don't like to work out, so I've been gaining weight, right? So by because of me not moving my body, I start to move my anchor points. And so,
So you're shifting your view, you're exercising your viewing muscles.
right. And so I start to perceive of myself as heavier. I went to the what you call me the other day. I got on the scale and I was like, when did I get 90 kilos? I was 83 last I checked, you know. Well, what happened? I wasn't moving my body, and so I moved my anchor points instead. So
I think
now,
there's an easy fix. Just get a new set of scales, Quentin.
oh,
It's the scales that are wrong.
it's the scales problem, right? But my point is that your anchor points are your own, and once you understand this, you can be oriented to your own space. You create your own space. This is so important in independent Scientology because when you understand where you are, when you understand like you this is what locationals are about, this is what coming up to present time is about, like all this stuff is so important to you being a functional, well-oriented, non-confused being. Like you got to get this stuff right. Now obviously we're talking about, like, in this just little chit chat conversation that we're having between guys, we're talking about astrology and Mercury behind the sun of the right, we talking about all this stuff, but it really is germane to who you are and where you are as a being trying to operate. Even power. Power is the ability, what is it? Is the ability to hold your position in space.
Right.
It's the ability to hold your position in space. That is your point of power. And so when you understand this, and when you really understand your own anchor points, and when you understand how to perceive of this, and it says here, whatever you choose as an anchor point is your anchor point, right? So how you choose your anchor points in your life, that's going to orient you. I said to Art not too long ago, I said the higher your standards, the better your life. I said, y'all heard me say this before. The higher your standards, the better your life. And so what are your anchor points? What are you selecting in your space, in your whatever, as your anchor point so that you can start to move and have a real experience? It says there's nothing more real than a real anchor point.
And I would like to add something to that you said a couple of minutes ago, is we're not just in Dianetics, independent Scientology and Dianetics, we're not just talking about the physical universe. When Quentin says, per what he was reading out of the definitions, belief and know are two different things and are both relative and mutually exclusive concepts. Because what you believe, I believe in God. Okay, you believe in God. And then they say, well, yeah, I believe in God. And then you'll get some people and they say, you believe in God. And they'll go, I know God exists. Okay, well, we have to look at that in the concepts of independent Scientology. What's true for one person? What's true for three people? What's true for an entire church or an entire population? All of those things are different from person to person, and everything is relative. But in Dianetics and Scientology, you have to look at things both from your standpoint as a thetan controlling a body and as a thetan. And what you believe and what you know are two entirely different things. And we separate these things out, because if you don't know that you're in a body, which a lot of people on this planet don't, and believe that you only live once, well, okay, that's one way to look at it, and that's relative to your understanding and your knowledge. um, I was just talking to you guys before we started the podcast on when summer starts. And I said, well, summer starts on the 21st of December in the Southern Hemisphere and on the 21st of June in the Northern Hemisphere. And Arthur said, what did you say, Arthur? You thought it started the 1st of December? Is that right?
1st of December. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
The first.
I looked it up and then, yeah, so New South Wales is the 1st of December.
Right. See, but from my education in physical science and meteorology, we look at it differently because we are looking at where the sun is in the sky relative to the equator. When the sun goes to its furthest point north in the sky in the northern hemisphere, that is June 21st. And when it's at its southernmost point in the sky is December 21st, and it's switched in the southern hemisphere of the planet because we're on a big blue marble. And so, from my standpoint, I know something, you know something, and we're both in the southern hemisphere. We're just on two entirely, completely different continents. And again, this is from the standpoint of physical universe. This is what Google says. This is what my education as a child and in college was. These are when the seasons occur. But those seasons vary depending upon where you are at, what you are relative to on that big blue marble. If you live in Florida and you don't live in Minnesota, it's going to be different because you're further south towards the equator. So my point is, if you looked at that from the viewpoint of a thetan and the physical universe, know and believe are the same thing. And relative to what is it being defined as from the quote unquote authorities that say it is thus. Does that make sense to you guys? I mean, am I getting it across to our listeners and everybody as to how I'm trying to analogize this?
Yeah,
Yep. Yep.
and that we each have our beliefs and our knowingness, and depending on what you're operating from or operating with, that's going to determine how you move through life. It is.
Right, right. I, I'm
Definitely.
I'm I'm s- I'm sitting here looking at the temperature on my monitor on my Mac, and it says it's 85 degrees. And I mistake it if I'm not aware, I I go, oh, it's 85 degrees outside. Well, that temperature is coming from a weather station somewhere else that is saying that this is the temperature at this moment. No, it's not. I don't know that the temperature is the same here as it is where that weather station is. That's a relative truth. But I choose to believe it's 85 degrees outside because my computer tells me it's 85 degrees outside. Now, if
Yeah.
I were to look at a local thermometer, it might be 87. It might be
Right.
80.
Right.
So, and that's just in the confines of the physical
And the same thing with
universe.
clocks
But
and watches and stuff like that.
right, clocks and watches, and I mean, the United States government. I don't know if it still exists, but and it probably does. But even back in the 70s, when my dad had it,
You said the United States government. I don't know if it still exists. It probably does.
yeah. Well, I'm just saying because I haven't and I haven't heard it in a long time. But when I was a kid, my dad used to have a shortwave receiving radio, and there is a channel you could probably Google it, Arthur, but it was called WWV, and what it was is it came from uh, Colorado, and it was a government-based. I think it was part of the National Oceanic Atmospheres Administration, NOAA, the Weather Service, and it was based off of an atomic clock. And this is before smartphones. This is before computers. This was like 1973, 1975, somewhere in there. And it was a signal that was sent out over shortwave radio so that anybody that could receive that, which could be planetary in scope because shortwave goes a long way, it was the stable datum, and it had a ticking and a beeping on it. And then every minute it would say, this is the stable datum for what time it is in that time zone. And then you could calculate your time with the differential from the time zones that you were in. And it ran constantly and it transmitted constantly. That was the stable datum for time in the 1970s, relative to the physical universe, of course. So my point is that believe and know are very much like that, that this is the agreed upon time, and these are how particles move, and the planet's moving around the sun, and the sun is moving around the galaxy, around this big black supermassive black hole in this galaxy, so on and so forth. So what you believe and what you know are relative to that which you can perceive and are aware of. And if you agree to particular things and they are manifest to you and a group of people that are making it so, well, that's relative too. because Mercury retrograde may or may not be something we don't know. I experience it. You experience it. I hadn't noticed it till you brought it to my attention. But did I buy into that? Did everybody else buy into that? Do you see what I'm saying? And that's still in the physical universe.
Well, and what's also important is that your beliefs, and I'm talking to you who are listening, your beliefs are something that are important to you as an individual, right? And that what you know is what you need to hold on to. What you need to hold on to is what you know to be true for you, right? That's your own
Stable
personal
datum.
integrity. Yeah.
Yeah.
And LRH in the technical dictionary, he talks about ridicule. And when one is ridiculed, let me give you the definition of ridicule first. So ridicule is the subjection of someone to contemptuous or dismissive language or behavior. And so when one is ridiculed, it can affect you. And how many times have you been in a relationship, or how many times have you been in the world or whatever, and you ran into a Karen or you ran into somebody and there's a ridicule that's taking place, right? Well, it says here in the technical dictionary, ridicule is somebody grabbing hold of one of your anchor points, claiming it, and holding it away from you. This is technical dictionary. Ridicule is somebody grabbing hold of one of your anchor points, claiming it, and holding it away from you. That contemptuous and dismissive language, right, is what the definition is in the Webster's or whatever. But in the tech dictionary, ridicule is somebody grabbing hold of one of your anchor points, claiming it, and holding it away from you. And the reason why you feel ridiculed, the reason why you feel dismissed, the reason why you feel contempt, the reason why you feel a hatred or some kind of vitriol or whatever, is because that person has grabbed hold of one of your beliefs, one of your anchor points, one of your stable data, claimed it. No, da, 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 and held it away from you. You'll never be anything. You'll never amount to da, da, da. What you know how people do, right? And so I'm giving you this because whatever it is that you're working with, that's orienting you, that's keeping you going, that's keeping you doing your thing, let that be your truth. Let that be what gets you. And the reason why you even listening to this podcast is to get some awareness, maybe to expand your anchor points. If you've never heard of us talk before, let this be a sign, right? Expanding your anchor points to where you can now then say, oh, I can see that. I can work with that. I can be oriented by that thought or that knowingness or that viewpoint, right? And by doing that, you start to expand your anchor points, and you can have more space, you can have more reality, you can have more experiences, or maybe even a better understanding of the experiences that you're having, right? And this is why in independent Scientology, we do these podcasts. We put this stuff out so that you can have a better understanding of this tech, that you can get yourself in session and start to get the results and the benefits of that, and that you can start to learn more for yourself, and you can have a better lived experience in this world. And don't let nobody ridicule you for that. Okay, don't let anybody grab hold of any of your anchor points and say, no, you will not have this thought. You cannot be an independent Scientologist. You cannot go free. Da, 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 da. And they just try to hold it away from you. You grab hold of it and you run with it straight up the bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
100%.
that's just like somebody coming up, a Karen, an HOA Karen saying, Your HOA agreement says you can't have pumpkins out on your front porch on Halloween. It's against our terms. Remove these pumpkins right now. I mean,
Are you living? It sounds like you've lived in Australia.
Right.
Well, there's nothing worse than an Australian Karen.
Oh man. And the funny thing is, even with weather here, like the way they pose the weather, oh, it's 23 degrees, but it actually feels like 21. It's like, oh, what is that?
Jeez.
Right. It's all relative to what that person is aware of. What's true for them is true for them. And
Yeah.
so when you're looking at these phenomena and everything like that, to have a better understanding of these concepts of awareness, of perception, and that being relative, Do I think as an OT8 that I have all the answers to everything? No. But I'll tell you what, I have a far, 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 far better understanding of the universes that I reside in, am aware of, and the nature of it. And I'm not the adverse effect of it. And I can either agree or I can disagree. I can postulate, I can consider, I can be aware, I can choose to not be aware, I can choose to be more aware, and there's always more work to do. And that there's a lot going on in this universe, the physical universe, and other universes. And the only way to find out about these things and these universes and our interrelationship and work, creation, perception, all of that stuff is in the materials that LRH so graciously spent a vast majority of his life on and said, check this out. See if it's true for you. If it's true for you, great. Use it, apply it, pass it on. And that's the important thing is that we don't know what we don't know. He didn't know everything, and he knew that. But boy, was he a curious one to find out about things, distill it down, compare it to other things, put it in writing, and say, "Hey, take a look at this. See what you think about this type of a thing." So that's what we're trying to do in these podcasts, and we come up with different viewpoints and things that we're experiencing in life, the three of us, or that we've seen other people experience, and convey it over and try and put it into terms that everybody can easily understand. And you get this information from independent Scientology and Dianetics. So, in closing, is there anything else we want to tie this up in a pretty red bow on before we leave our listeners with something to think about?
Well, I think we're all right.
I would agree. Quentin,
And that's it.
did we lose him?
I'm
Might have
sorry.
his
I had to
might be
mute by
muted.
accident. No,
Yeah.
I say right. I say it's gonna be all right.
Right.
ALLRIGHT.
Right. And LRH says also that when everything seems, all the lines seem awry, and things are dark and everything, don't despair, because everything will turn out all right. And I produced an AI message 2 years ago, right before Thanksgiving, and I still firmly believe that, and that your reality, your fate, your destiny is what you make it. It isn't left up to anything else for anything to decide but yourself. And take this information and do what you need to and do what you must and look into it for yourself. Don't take Quentin's or Arthur's or my word or whatever. We're not telling you what to believe or how to assimilate that information, but we can help you with that if you'll let us. So thanks for listening, and make sure that you check out our mastermind intensive that we've got going as a special. It's posted on Facebook, and come see us. It starts December 1st. We'd like to see you, and we're going to go over a lot of these concepts and everything in that and make you a much more powerful individual and pull all these stops that are going on, either because it's for Mercury retrograde or somebody else or yourself or whatever. We're going to untie these knots and get you up the bridge. So check out the Mastermind Intensive and everything that it's about. Watch our video. It's on Facebook. And we'll see you for another podcast probably tomorrow. Namaste, and we love you. Bye bye.
Peace.
Bye bye.